Namaste and a very good morning to all of you. I welcome you to my channel, The Outlier. My name is Mithun. In today's video, I'll be talking about how to perform sentiment analysis using Python. Even before I proceed to demonstrate how to perform sentiment analysis using Python, may I request you to subscribe to my channel, also like and share my videos. Let me begin by introducing you to the data set that I have picked up from Kaggle. This is a data set which talks about the product rating given by customers. So we have customer ID, which is the first column. Then we have the customer review. And the last column that I have here is customer rating. Let's look at the customer review for a particular product. The first customer, he says it was a nice product. I like its design a lot. It's easy to carry and looked stylish. When you look at some of the words here, like nice, please observe the words nice, like, easy, looked stylish. All these are positive words. So for a human mind, if you were to sort of classify this particular customer review, you would classify this as a positive sentiment because there are multiple positive words that are being used, like nice, like, easy, stylish, so on and so forth. It's hardly a surprise that on a scale of 1 to 5, the customer rating here is 5. He's extremely satisfied with the product, and therefore the customer rating is 5. When we look at customer rating, it is a value which lies from 1 to 5. If the customer rating is 5, it means that he is happy, he is satisfied, and therefore the rating is 5. On the other hand, if the customer rating is 1 or 2, it means that the customer is dissatisfied. Clearly, the first customer is highly satisfied customer. Let's take a look at another text here. He says, awesome sound. The very first word, awesome, is a strong positive word. Further, he says, very pretty to see, and the sound quality is too good. I wish to take this product, loved this product. When we look at words like awesome, pretty, good, loved, these are all very strong positive words. So whenever a customer uses these positive words, it is pretty easy for us to classify this as a positive sentiment. Again, the customer rating is 5 here. Let's proceed to look at a few negative ratings. The third example here, when the customer is not so satisfied. Let's look at what he has to say. He says, the sound quality is good. So the first sentence is a positive sentence, but let's look at the second sentence. He says, but cannot wear it for more than 10 minutes. So here, there is a sharp divergence of his opinion wherein he's saying he cannot wear it for more than 10 minutes. It is so uncomfortable. Let me draw your attention to this very powerful and strong negative word, uncomfortable. He says, my ears start paining because of its small size. Paining, small size, uncomfortable. Already you know where we are going with this particular sentiment. It is strongly negative. I feel like somebody is pressing my ears from both the sides with great force. Boat needs to improve its design. This is what he says. Now, in this particular sentiment, I can hardly see any positive word. There are a lot of negative words like uncomfortable, cannot wear, paining, small size, needs to improve. Let's observe the rating for this customer. It is 1, which means that here the customer is clearly dissatisfied, frustrated with the product. Let me give you one more example. I have moved to the 15th record. Reason for 1 star. So he's explaining as to why he has given a 1 star. He says the sounds for alerts for connection, low battery, incoming calls, etc. plays at 10 times of volume than the volume that we usually hear anything on headphones. Low battery, 10 times higher volume, so he's already complaining. These notification plays at sound level that everyone in the room will hear it. So it's an invasion of privacy. He's perhaps it also is disturbing a lot of other people around him. Imagine it playing when you are wearing this headphone. It is like a blast in your ears out of nowhere. When it plays like that loud, when I'm wearing it, I wish to throw it away. Clearly a very, very angry and a frustrated opinion here. Reason why I haven't thrown it away yet is because of the decent sound quality, so on and so forth. Now, when you study this from the human perspective, we can look at certain strong negative words like low battery, blast in your ears, I want to throw it away. These are conveying the underlying sentiment of the customer review. No wonder when you look at the customer rating, it is very, very low. It is given as 1. Let me go to the first row here. There are two things here. One is, as a human being, it's pretty easy for us to read and look for positive words. If in a customer review, there are a lot of positive words, we can go ahead and call the sentiment as positive. On the other hand, if the review has a lot of negative words, we can go ahead and classify it as negative. Similarly, if there are neutral words like don't know, can't say, can't rate, we will be calling it as neutral sentiment. So any piece of text can be classified into 3 categories: positive sentiment, negative sentiment, and a neutral sentiment. For human being, it is pretty easy. Question is, can a machine look at these words and classify automatically whether the sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral? If this can be done, there is nothing like it. This is where a useful technique called as VADER comes into picture, which will go through each and every text and classify whether the text sentiment is a positive sentiment, negative sentiment, or a neutral sentiment. I'm going to use this particular data set to show you sentiment analysis in Python. Let's look at the number of records in this particular data set. We have 9,996 records, which is a pretty healthy sample size. It's approximately 10,000. So we are going to run a sentiment analysis on a sample data of 10,000 records. Let me now move on to Python. So this is the interface of Python. It's called as Jupyter Notebook. Here is where I'll be doing what is called as sentiment analysis using VADER. I'll explain what is VADER, but let's just try to understand what exactly is sentiment analysis, who uses sentiment analysis, and how do I make sense of sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is one of the most widely known NLP tasks. So this is a widely performed natural language processing task. In this article, what we are doing is we are aiming to give the reader a very clear understanding of sentiment analysis and different methods through which it is implemented in NLP. The field of natural language processing has evolved very much during the last 5 to 10 years. There are a lot of open source packages like Spacey, TextBlob, so on and so forth, that provide ready-to-use functionalities for NLP like sentiment analysis. There are so many of these packages available for free to make you confused about which one to use for your application. So Spacey is not the only tool. There are other tools as well. So it's very easy to get confused as to which tool should you use for your data set. Let's understand this further in a detailed way. Some of the most popular NLP sentiment analysis packages are what is called as VADER. Second is TextBlob. Thirdly, we also have Flare. And fourthly, we can build a custom model. Either we can specify a rule-based approach, or we can go by some of the other complicated machine learning techniques. In the market, mostly people use either VADER, TextBlob, or Flare. The one question that you might ask is, what exactly is sentiment analysis? So I'm answering this particular question at this stage as to what do we mean by sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is the task of determining the emotional value of a given expression in the natural language. So simply put, it's a process of determining the emotional value of a given expression. It is essentially a multi-class text classification where the given input text is classified into either positive, neutral, or a negative statement. Just now you saw the customer rating dataset. Based on the customer review, we will be using an algorithm which will classify the text as either positive, neutral, or negative sentiment. The number of classes can vary according to the nature of the training dataset. For example, sometimes it is formulated as a binary classification problem with 1 as a positive sentiment or 0 as a negative sentiment. At an overall level, we can say that sentiment analysis is the process of determining the emotional value of a given expression. It is widely used in market research surveys. What is the final goal of sentiment analysis? The final goal of sentiment analysis is that it's a process of detecting the polarity. When I say polarity, either the positive or the negative opinion within a text. Whether a whole document, paragraph, sentence, or clause, we would like to determine whether the customer review is a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment. Once we are able to pull out that piece of information that a particular review is positive or negative, we can go ahead and then say majority of my customers are satisfied, majority of my customers are dissatisfied. This kind of an insight can be made based on the analysis. Further, sentiment analysis aims to measure the attitude, sentiment, evaluation, attitude, and emotions of the speaker or writer based on the computational treatment of subjectivity in a text. Let's now ask another important question. Why is sentiment analysis difficult to perform? Apparently, the first impression when we talk about sentiment analysis is that it is very easy. You look for positive words and then classify it as positive if there are positive words. On the other hand, if the customer review has a lot of negative words, you can look for negative words and classify it as negative. Let's look at this particular sentence wherein we are saying the movie was good. Clearly a positive statement so far, but the songs could have been better. The second part of the sentence is negative. The first part of the sentence is positive. So here, this is a mixed opinion, wherein in the same statement, in the same sentence, you have two opposite emotions being present. This is not such an easy task as it appears. Let's look at some of the applications of sentiment analysis now. Sentiment analysis has a lot of applications in movie review rating. Let us say you have gone and watched a new movie, maybe Patan or maybe a movie, let's say Kantara. It could be any of these things. Based on your opinion, you give a review. You write saying that the performance was amazing, the songs were brilliant, but the locations and certain aspects of the direction could have been better. Now, based on your opinion, we want the machine learning algorithm to train, look for words, and classify whether such an opinion is positive or negative. Movie reviews extensively use sentiment analysis, analyzing online movie reviews to get insights about the audience and their opinion. Nextly, about the news. Even for news sentiment analysis, we can go ahead and perform sentiment analysis. Thirdly, social media sentiment analysis can be done, wherein we can analyze the sentiments of Facebook posts, Twitter, etc. Last but not the least, we can also look at online food reviews. Here, we can analyze the sentiments of food reviews from the user feedback. There are many different ways in which you can perform sentiment analysis. One of the popular techniques to perform sentiment analysis would be what is called as VADER. VADER stands for Valence Aware Dictionary for Sentiment Reasoning. I repeat, VADER stands for Valence Aware Dictionary for Sentiment Reasoning. This is a model which is used for text sentiment analysis that is sensitive to both polarity and intensity of emotion. So there are two aspects that we are talking about. One is the polarity part, which means whether the opinion is positive or negative. And the second one is the intensity of the emotion. Is it a strongly positive sentiment or is it a strongly negative sentiment? It is available in the NLTK package. So to use VADER, you would need to install the NLTK package, which can be applied directly to unlabeled text data. VADER sentiment analysis relies on a dictionary that maps the lexical features to emotion intensities known as sentiment scores. The sentiment score of a text can be obtained by summing up the intensity of each word in the text. We'll be looking at VADER in action in a few moments from now. Now, let's look at a simple example. I've already told you that VADER relies on a dictionary that maps lexical features to emotion intensities, which are known as sentiment scores. Now, for example, let's consider a simple statement: I love cricket, or I love food. Somebody may say movie was amazing. The fourth opinion could be that Sachin Tendulkar is a great batsman. The fifth opinion could be cricket is my favorite sport. What happens is that VADER goes through each word in the text. It looks for strong positive words like love, amazing, wow, cool, sensational, favorite, enjoy. These are all positive words, and you can expect those sentences carrying these words to be assigned a high positive value. Let's consider another set of examples. I hate movies. I'm disgusted with politics. The attitude is very, very bad. The customer service is really shoddy. It is poor, low battery, poor quality, and expensive. In each of these statements, there are powerful negative words like hate, disgusted, frustrated, bad, terrible, poor, expensive, low. So each of these words, because they carry a very strong negative theme, you can expect VADER to classify it as a negative sentiment. Let's now see VADER in action. The first thing that I need to do here is to import certain libraries. I'll be importing pandas and NumPy. You can see here I'm also importing NLTK. From nltk.sentiment.vader, we will be importing Sentiment Intensity Analyzer. As the name itself suggests, it analyzes the intensity of the sentiment, whether the sentiment is strong or negative. It is one thing to say that particular sentiment is positive or negative. It is another to say whether the sentiment is strongly positive or whether the sentiment is strongly negative. Let's go ahead and download the VADER lexicon. I'll need some data to work on, and therefore I'm using the pandas.read_CSV function to download the customer reviews file, which you were seeing earlier. The customer reviews file can be obtained from Kaggle. Let me go ahead and load this particular file, and I will be using the .head_of method to display the first 5 records. You can see here, these are some of the earlier comments that we were reading. It was a nice product. I like its design. Awesome sound. Very pretty to see this. Sound quality is good. Clearly, these are all positive sentiments. The first 2 have been rightly classified as positive, and therefore a high value of rating is given. A rating value of 5 means it's a good sign. On the other hand, if the rating value is 1, it means that the customer is dissatisfied. In the next stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an instance of Sentiment Intensity Analyzer class. So we are going to instantiate the Sentiment Intensity Analyzer and we're going to call this as analyzer. For each and every text of the 10,000 reviews, what we would like to do is we would like to analyze the sentiment of each review and add a column for the sentiment scores. So we will be taking the help of the lambda functions here to generate the polarity scores. Let me go ahead and execute this particular command. Once we generate the polarity scores, we will be saving this as scores. You can see here the first opinion. There are 4 parts to this. The first part is the negative part. Second is neutral part. The third one is the positive part. And the last one is the compound score, which is nothing but the normalized score of the earlier 3 values. The compound score is the overall sentiment value. When you compare negative score with the neutral score with that of the positive score, clearly the neutral score is very, very high, which implies that the proportion of neutrality in the text is higher. I repeat, since the proportion of neutrality in the text is higher, therefore it is being called as negative. When you look at the positive part, it is 0.483. Clearly, the proportion of positivity that has been detected for the second record is slightly lower than the neutral part. And when it comes to negative, it is almost 0. So out of the 3 classes, negative has been given the lowest value, neutral is 0.51, and the positive score is 0.48. Out of the 3 numbers that you're seeing here, the highest number is 0.51 for neutral sentiment, and therefore you can call this as a neutral sentiment. The second person can be called as a neutral opinion. Let's show this in a better way by converting this into a pandas data frame. Even before converting this entire opinion, this is a dictionary of values that we are seeing. It has a key value pair. I'm going to concatenate the data with polarity scores. You can see here, I'm concatenating the data which has customer reviews with the scores that we have generated. And now I'm going to click on data. It's a lot easier to visualize when you create a pandas data frame. When you read this particular comment, it was a nice product. I like its design a lot. Look at the last column here. There's something called as compound score. The compound score is nothing but the overall sentiment score, which is 0.80. It is leaning towards positive because it is greater than 0. There are 3 polarities that VADER has detected. One is negativity. It is clearly 0 because there are no negative words here. 61% of the text is neutral and 38% of the text is positive. The second opinion, you can see here, the majority opinion is 0.51 and the next majority opinion is 0.48. So it is leaning towards the neutral score. And therefore, when you take the normalized score of each of these categories, the overall compound score here is 0.95. What we are going to do at the next stage is we are going to rename the compound score as the overall sentiment score. We are going to get rid of negative, neutral, and positive, and we are going to have just one column which will describe the sentiment type. Let me scroll down. Here you can see I'm renaming the column from compound to overall sentiment score. When we go ahead and execute this particular command, you can see here you have the overall sentiment score. Once we have the overall sentiment score, we can just simply create a threshold and say, if the overall sentiment score is greater than 0, call this particular record as a positive sentiment. On the other hand, if the overall sentiment score is less than 0, you can call it as negative. How do we perform this analysis? In the next stage, we can use the sentiment classifier command. In this sentiment classifier command, I will be creating a new column which is called as sentiment type. We are specifying a simple criteria here. We will be calling the compound score as positive if any value is greater than 0. If it is less than 0, I'm going to call it as negative. Let me go ahead and execute this. You can see here. Now this is a lot simpler. This is the first review. The overall sentiment score is 0.80. It is greater than 0, and therefore we are calling this as sentiment type positive. Let's look at the second comment. Here, the overall sentiment score is 0.95, and therefore, again, it is called as positive. Like this, the first three, in fact, the first 5 comments have been called as positive sentiment type. Let's now look at the overall performance of the model. So far, it has been good, wherein we have been able to read each and every review, classify the review based on the polarity score. We have been able to create the overall sentiment score and the sentiment type. Let's imagine a few cases here. Suppose in the earlier code, in this earlier code, if the negative score is 0, what does this mean? It simply means that there is no negative sentiment in the sentence. On the other hand, if the neutral score is 0, it means that there is no neutral sentiment in the sentence. If the neutral sentiment is 0.61, here you can see 0.61, what does this mean? It means that 61% of the sentence is neutral. Lastly, when the positive score is 0.38, what does it mean? It simply means that 38% of the sentence is positive. That's how you can read the negative, neutral, and positive score. The positive, negative, and neutral score simply represent the proportion of text that falls into each of the 3 categories with a range of 0 to 1. The compound score represents the overall sentiment score. It ranges from -1 to +1, with -1 indicating strong negative sentiment and a +1 indicating extremely positive sentiment. We have built this particular model. We have also classified each and every record as positive or negative. The last stage now is to look at the overall performance of the model. When you execute this, along the column, what you have is the sentiment type, which is negative or positive. Negative or positive as predicted by VADER. So we are going to assess the performance of the VADER sentiment analyzer by comparing it with the actual review. The actual review could be 1 to 5. I'd like to draw your attention to the rating of 5. We said earlier that a customer would rate a particular product very highly if he is highly satisfied. Now, what is interesting here is that 5,586 such texts have been assigned a positive sentiment by VADER, which is a good sign because it means that majority of the high rating values are being called as positive. Only 140 such customer reviews have been assigned as negative, which is clearly a misclassification. It can't be that the customer review is 5, but VADER has given it a low rating, and therefore 140 high rated reviews are being misclassified by VADER. One more interesting thing is when a customer gives a rating of 4, that again is a positive sentiment. It's not a bad performance here at all. 2,125 such records have been classified as positive. What we want is when customer gives a high rating of 4 or 5, VADER should be able to correctly classify it as positive, which is what is happening. The opposite is also true, which means basically that whenever a customer has given a low rating, let's say 1 or 2, there are very few such cases which VADER should classify as positive. Here again, you see a small number. Therefore, we can go ahead and say that the performance of this particular model is reasonable. With this, I have come to the end of today's video. In today's video, what we have seen is what is sentiment analysis, how do you perform sentiment analysis, how to generate the polarity scores, and based on the polarity scores, how do you further detect the intensity of sentiment. Further, we also were able to tell the overall performance of the model. High rating should be given a positive sentiment. Low rating, let's say 1 or 2, you can see 403 such cases have been called as negative. 145 such cases of low rating have been called as negative, which is a good indication. I request you to subscribe to my channel, also like and share my videos. Thank you very much for watching this particular video. Have a great day ahead.